I bought a cabin for 25 cents. Yeah, you heard me right, 25 measly cents. The kind of coin you'd toss into a vending machine for gum, or drop into a fountain for a wish. And yet that single quarter changed the entire trajectory of my life. It wasn't supposed to. At the time, I was broke, angry, and clinging to whatever scraps of luck life threw at me. Divorce papers had drained what little savings I had, my job as a mechanic was barely keeping me afloat, and I was living in a one-room rental that smelled like moldy carpet and desperation. Then I saw the ad. It wasn't on Zillow, or any real estate site. It was printed in black ink in the back pages of a local classifieds paper that most people only used to line birdcages. The ad was strange: abandoned mountain cabin, must sell, transfer fee, 25 cents. That was it. No photo, no description, no phone number, just an email address. My first thought, scam. My second, who cared? I had a quarter to lose. So I sent the email, expecting silence. Instead, I got a reply 2 days later from a lawyer's office. The message was brief. The cabin had been part of a tax foreclosure, the original owner was deceased, and the property had been overlooked during auctions. The county wanted it off their books, so they listed it as essentially worthless. All I had to do was sign paperwork, pay a 25 cents transfer fee, and the cabin was mine. It sounded insane, too good to be true. But something in my gut told me to go through with it. Maybe it was desperation, maybe it was fate. A week later, with a crisp quarter and a notary's stamp, I became the legal owner of a mountain cabin I'd never seen. When I finally drove up there, winding through pine forests and fog, I expected a shack ready to collapse. And to be fair, it looked that way at first: tilted porch, broken windows, roof sagging like an old man's back. But then I stepped inside. The wood was old, yes, but sturdy. The fireplace was stone-built and massive. The floorboards creaked, but they didn't buckle. There was an attic, a cellar, and even a well out back. Dust coated everything, but underneath the grime was history. You could feel it. I don't know how to explain this, but I fell in love instantly. That cabin wasn't just wood and nails, it was a heartbeat. Forgotten, abandoned, waiting for someone to care again. So I started fixing it up. Nights after work, weekends, sometimes with borrowed tools, sometimes with duct tape and sheer stubbornness. I patched the roof, replaced windows, sanded floors. Neighbors up the road laughed at first. A quarter cabin sounded like a bad joke. But I didn't care. Piece by piece, I rebuilt it. Then something crazy happened. 6 months later, a friend visited and casually mentioned that cabins in the area were skyrocketing in value. The town had become a hotspot for tech millionaires looking for retreats, and properties once considered worthless were being scooped up for ridiculous amounts of money. I brushed it off, until he showed me Zillow listings. Cabins half the size of mine, in worse condition, were selling for $2 million. My chest tightened. My cabin, my quarter cabin, might actually be worth something. And then, a year after I bought it, the shockwave hit. A real estate developer knocked on my door, offering $10 million cash for the cabin and land. I nearly fainted. $10 million. More money than I could imagine in 100 lifetimes. All from a coin I'd found in my car's cup holder. But before I could even consider the offer, the HOA showed up. Yes, the HOA. Turns out, despite being tucked in the mountains, the land my cabin sat on was technically part of a larger development built in the 80s. Most of the lots had been abandoned, but the HOA had survived like a cockroach. And they claimed ownership rights over my property. Their president, let's just call her Karen, because the universe has a sense of humor, showed up one morning with a folder in hand and sunglasses perched like a crown. She didn't knock. She didn't smile. She just strutted onto my porch and announced, "You'll need to vacate immediately. The cabin is under HOA jurisdiction. We're reclaiming it." I laughed in her face. Surely she was joking. But she wasn't. She pulled out a letter, stamped with the HOA's seal, claiming that since I hadn't paid HOA dues I didn't even know existed, they were seizing my property. I told her to get lost. She smirked and said, "Lawyers will be in touch." And they were. Within weeks, I was drowning in legal threats. The HOA filed liens, sent notices, even tried to fine me $500 a day for unapproved renovations. They wanted my cabin, not because they cared about it, but because they knew about the developer's $10 million offer. They thought I'd roll over. But they didn't know who they were messing with. I spent nights poring over paperwork, county records, tax documents. And what I found made my blood run cold, and then boil with fury. The HOA had no valid claim. Their charter had expired 15 years ago. They'd never renewed it. Legally, they didn't even exist. They were a ghost HOA, pretending to have power they no longer held. I gathered my evidence. Every expired charter, every missed renewal, every shady letter they'd sent. Then I hired a lawyer, ironically, with a loan backed by the developer who still wanted my cabin. We filed suit. The court hearings were brutal. Karen sat there with her smug smile, flanked by overpriced lawyers, while they tried to paint me as a squatter who'd stolen the property. But when my lawyer dropped the bomb, the expired charter, the courtroom went silent. The judge leaned forward, eyebrows raised, and asked Karen's lawyer if this was true. The man stuttered, shuffled papers, and finally admitted, "Yes, Your Honor." Karen's face went pale. In that moment, everything flipped. The judge not only ruled in my favor, he declared the HOA's actions fraudulent. They were ordered to pay my legal fees and face investigation for harassment. As for me, the developer's offer still stood. I sold the cabin for $10 million. And as the ink dried on the contract, I couldn't resist one final act of revenge. I used part of the money to buy up the abandoned lots surrounding my cabin, the same ones the HOA once claimed control over. Then I bulldozed the rusted HOA sign at the neighborhood's entrance and replaced it with a shiny new one. Quarter Cabin Estates, privately owned. HOA free forever. And here's the kicker, Karen. She lived in one of those lots. She now pays me rent. All from a single quarter. So the next time you see a coin lying on the sidewalk, don't ignore it. That little piece of metal might just be the key to your revenge story.